As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, your home for deer hunting news, stories, and strategies. And now, your host, Mark Kenyon.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kenyon, and this is episode number 368. And today on the show, we are covering the 10 steps to your best deer hunting season ever and discussing our first whitetail hunt of the season. All right, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast brought to you by Onyx. Today on the show, it is myself and Josh Furter Hilliard. Josh.
How you doing?
You don't like it when I call you Furter.
Well, I mean,
you did this little shake of the head.
I'll take it. It's all fun and games. I don't have a choice anymore, I don't think, to change it now. So
no, man, it's locked in stone. So here's what we're gonna do today. I thought that with hunting seasons opening up across the country, right? Our season started today. You and I we're out here in Idaho on our public land whitetail hunt. We just had our very first hunt of the year tonight. Our seasons are kicking off. People are kicking off in North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kentucky, all over the place. And then a bunch of seasons opening up for the next couple of weeks. I thought we'd kind of do my beginning of the season pep talk episode. Every few years I try to do this, just kind of laying out some key things to think about. And I thought rather than it be just me lecturing folks, why don't the two of us talk through a handful of things? I'll kind of lay out some of these ideas. Basically what I've done is compile a list of 10 different, I don't know if it's steps, it's more so 10 different reminders of important things to keep in mind throughout the hunting season that's going to help you. Some of these are kind of tactical things. Some of these are more mindset things. And some are beginner, some are a little bit more advanced. But I think regardless of if you're a new hunter or if you are a very experienced hunter, there's something in here that will be helpful to you to keep in mind over the course of the next 4 months. Right? Because you can never stop learning. You can never have this stuff figured out enough. So, if this all sounds like something you've heard before as we're discussing it, think about, okay, how do I actually execute some of these things this coming season? Or can I pick one of these things to try to really focus on and get better at this thing? That's how you grow, is by kind of taking purposeful, meaningful, focused practice or attention to detail of specific things. And I think that's what we can do here. So some ideas, we'll walk through these 10 things. And then after that, we got to tell everybody about our hunt tonight, because we had a hell of a hunt.
We had a good one tonight.
I still can't really wrap my head around what happened to you tonight, Furter. Furter had a hell of a hunt, guys.
Had a really fun night.
So we're going to tell you about that after we run through our 10 steps or 10 reminders to your best deer hunting season ever. We'll keep this one kind of quick because I know folks want to get out in the woods. The seasons are opening, so let's not spend too much time sitting in the truck listening to people talk about it. Let's actually get out there and do it. So here's what I'm thinking, Josh. I'm going to bring up each one of these different topics. I'll kind of lay out some of my thoughts or ideas on it. And then if you've got any examples or if you've got questions or if you've got something else you want to add to it, jump in and do that.
Sounds good.
And we'll just kind of take it from there, and then we'll get into story time. So here we go. 10 steps to your best deer hunting season ever. I think one of the first things to keep in mind, if you are, especially if you are taking that step to trying to hunt for bucks, or especially mature bucks, what I'm going to tell you here is something that just is crucial, and that is the fact that the details are everything. All the little things matter. I go back to, and I bring this up a lot, but Mark D'Antonio, the former coach of Michigan State football, always said that it was a game of inches, and that stuck with me. It's those little inches along the way that lead to first downs, which lead to touchdowns, which lead to games won. And the same thing applies to whitetail hunting. It's the little things. It's making sure that you've got your whole process down when it comes to setting up your saddle and sticks, and so you're well thought through and planned on how you're going to do that, and you can do it quietly and effectively. It's a little thing like taping a buckle so that when you drop a strap and it bangs against the side of your sticks, it doesn't make that ding. It's a little detail like thinking through exactly how the wind direction might change partway through your day. It's not glossing over things. And it's so easy to do, and I am guilty of it a lot, where I want to gloss over things, and sometimes I still do, even when I know it's not the right thing. But I try really hard not to do this. But the details can be a pain in the ass. Like trying to have to worry about all the little things, like on our hunt tonight, right? I mean, there's so many little things that you don't want to worry about.
Right.
The wind direction is this certain direction when we're heading in. And then you can either just ignore it, or you can take a calculated risk, or you can go do something totally different. And then you got to think about, okay, now how am I going to set up my stand in a position so that I can get a shot, and I can get access without spooking deer, and I can get out without spooking deer, and I need to be able to be covered in the tree, and I need to be able to, move around. All these different things you have to think about. Every little tiny thing does matter.
Sure, especially on a first hunt, right? Like first one of the year. I mean,
Yeah.
You're rusty. You're not used to, by the time November comes around, you're usually a well-oiled machine. But I'm guilty of forgetting something almost every year. My first time, I forgot my arrows in my truck. I forgot my quiver in my truck one year. So I mean, the first hunt is always, attention to details make such a big difference on that first one, especially.
Yeah, which brings to mind something that a little tool you can use that helps you pay attention to these details. And I think when it's something that's kind of floating around in your head, it's easy to ignore something or move on from something. But it's a lot easier to follow through on things when you write them down. So, for example, if you know there are some little things that you want to take care of before opening day, like taping the straps on your sticks, or like making sure your tree stands aren't squeaking, or you want to get better at making sure you follow through on your entire scent control regimen that you should do, but you inevitably skip steps because you're tired or lazy or whatever, you don't want to do it all. If there's something like that, and it's a good idea in a lot of cases with all these things to try to not necessarily tackle everything, but pick a few things to focus on. So write a few of these things down and say, this year I'm going to nail that thing or these 3 things. I'm going to make sure I pay attention to the details of, in this case, keeping your stand and sticks and everything perfectly silent. There's a little detail thing that can actually make a big difference.
Huge difference.
So that's a high level concept of sorts that can apply to a lot of different aspects of your deer hunting life of a given season, but try to just always not cut yourself slack when it comes to these things. When you find yourself wanting to cut the corner, try to remember, dang it, those inches matter. I got to pay attention to the details. Yep. I'm just going to do it. It's like when I was a kid, I used to, ignore my mom when she told me to go clean my room or vacuum the stairs or do this thing or that. And I would try to push it off as long as possible and find some way to skirt around it and get away with not doing as much. But at some point along the way, I realized that my life would be better and easier if I just took it on the chin and just did it right away. Just get it done and over with. Do the hard thing right away, and then the rest of your life is so much better. And that's kind of the thing with deer hunting, is do the hard, annoying, detailed things sometimes. Just do it. Get it done, check the box, and then move on, rather than letting that thing nag at you, knowing I should have done that. So that's number 1. Number 2, this is a more tactical idea, but keep this in mind throughout your hunts. And again, none of this is new stuff. These are things that we've talked about over many episodes with many different guests, and everyone has their own take on it. So what I'm trying to do here is synthesize a few of the most important concepts and talk about them in a more general way that you can maybe apply to whatever circumstances you're in. So here's something that we've talked to a lot of people about, and that is the importance of the first sit. The first time you go into a spot is often your very best opportunity at a buck, right? Because you're going to have deer that very quickly pick up on what you're doing. We know that one of the greatest challenges we have as hunters is trying to keep deer from becoming educated as to what we're doing trying to hunt them. So one of the best ways to keep them uneducated is to keep changing it up. So that means one of two things. Either it means waiting to go in to hunt certain places till the right time, so that that first time you go in is the right time. Or number two, it's have a lot of first sits. So don't hunt the same place over and over and over. Hunt a spot, swing for the fences there, and then move to a new spot. Get your first sit there, and then move to a new spot. Get your spot there. And you can do that in several ways. You can do that by having a bunch of tree stands all over your properties, or you can do that by being mobile like we are on this hunt. We both got our saddles and sticks, and we snuck in today. We hung our saddles and sticks, hunted, and at dark we pulled them all down, and we're going to move for tomorrow.
Yep.
So that's a great way to always be in a fresh spot. Keep those deer guessing. They are not going to know where you're going to be tomorrow,
right?
Because they've had no idea,
right?
And that's going to put you in a better position.
Yeah, and just like, I hunted I got access to a new lease last year, and it hadn't been hunted in a while. And my first time out there, I had a shot opportunity, passed on a buck. That would have been one of my best bucks. I just didn't take the shot and never really had an opportunity, but I don't think I would have anyway. And first time out there, and they had no idea. And first time out tonight, I think we can talk about that a little bit later, but I think we both had a good first sit in a new spot.
Yeah,
definitely
man.
Something to be said for that.
The first sit, it is a powerful, powerful thing, and so many people can point to that. It's something you want to preserve or create. So keep that in mind. Let's jump over to another mindset thing. This is something more and more and more, and I want to dive into this further in future episodes, but I see deer hunting, like becoming a good deer hunter, is a two-part thing. One part is understanding deer and deer behavior and strategy stuff there. Like, what is a deer going to do in certain situations, and how do I account for that? But then the other side is decision-making. It's understanding how to analyze all these different inputs, all these different things, what I scouted, what I saw, what the weather is, what the time of year is. Taking all these different things and then try to have some kind of model to process that and come to the right decision. That's a lot harder than people give it credit for. And that has got me kind of fascinated in a whole bunch of weird wormholes around decision making, around mindset, around human psychology and how we can apply that. And one thing that I have dove into a little bit, this is getting a little a lot wonky, is ancient philosophy and how that can apply to, I know, you think I'm nuts. But hear me out here. One of the most important high-level concepts that's practiced in philosophy and in just basic everyday life is this idea of understanding what you can control and what you can't, and learning to not give up, but by releasing those things that you can't control, accepting what you can't, and taking responsibility for what you can. Yep. And if you can do those things, your life is a lot easier, a lot more fulfilling, a lot more successful. And that applies to general life, and it really applies to deer hunting. There's so many things in the deer hunting world where I found myself in the past stressing out, getting upset, getting pissed, getting frazzled about some kind of situation that if I were to take a step back, I'd realize, man, a lot of these things are out of my control. Like the neighbor started driving up and down the property line and shooting his gun, something like that. I can get pissed about it and tell all my friends about it and let it ruin my night and ruin my week of hunting and blame everything that goes wrong on this guy. Or I can say, all right, this bad thing happened. I have no control over it. I have no control over what happens next, at least in regards to what this neighbor does. So all I can do is say, that's water under the bridge. The only thing I can control is how do I react to it. That's what you have control over. So, Josh, if you miss a deer, you can't get that arrow back, right? That thing happened. You can't control it anymore. Yep. All you can control is what you do next. What are you going to do about tomorrow?
Go shoot your bow and try to fix whatever was going on. And yeah, I mean, you just got to get back on the horse and keep going.
Yep.
And I had that situation last year.
Yeah.
So,
in dwelling on it and pissing and moaning about it and feeling bad about it, it doesn't achieve anything, right?
Nope.
Yeah, I think so many times it's once you turn that corner and you say, okay, that happened. Now what? I think that phrase right there, now what, is an important one. Whenever something crappy happens this upcoming hunting season, when someone steals your trail camera, when you miss a buck, when your neighbor shoots the buck you were after, when you lose access to your best farm, accept, okay, that thing happened, now what? That is the superpower that you have, is you have this superpower to make the next decision. Yep. You can turn that page, and the sooner you can do that, the sooner you get on to the next thing and making good things happen.
Yep, exactly. We were talking about that on the truck ride out, just like mindset and attitude and how so much of that can play into success and just putting yourself in better situations by, having the right mindset. And I think that applies directly to that topic there.
Yeah, very, very true. And that actually applies to one of our other key reminders here, but I'm going to jump back to a more tactical thing. And this is very related to the last one. We talked about the importance of those first sits, those fresh sits. One of the things you can do to make sure you have more fresh sits is to preserve your best spots for the right times. And this is something that we've talked a lot about over the years, that I've focused on a lot about over the years. We've talked to Mark Drury about this a lot, understanding different factors and conditions that can help you pinpoint your best possible chances when the possible odds of success are as high as they possibly can be because of outside factors like barometric pressure or temperature changes or precipitation or, observations or time of year. A big change in my deer hunting success came when I started realizing that you can't just sit stuff over and over. You've got to have certain places for certain times of year and certain places for certain situations when you think that, okay, this is game time. This is a killing day. When you've got those killing days, you got to go to a killing spot. And then there's other days where the conditions aren't so great, and you can do one of two things. You can sit at home on the couch, or you can go and hunt secondary spots or hunt a wild card spot or hunt some public land. Get out there, learn, have some fun. Maybe you'll get lucky. But when it comes to those special spots, save them for the right times. Try to preserve those fresh sits as much as possible, or the really aggressive sits. Try to time your aggressive moves to better conditions so that when you do swing for the fences with, diving in to hunt a bedding area or a buck bed, Andre DeQuisto talks about this. He will, bump a buck and find out where his bedding area is, but then sometimes he'll try to time his return trip to when there's a good moon time. He's a big believer in the moon positioning and how that can impact deer movement. And so he'll wait and try to see when the moon says that buck will likely return to his bed a little bit later in the morning, going to keep him on his feet just a little bit more. So now he knows that's the time to strike because I've got that little thing in, again, back to his inches. He'll have a couple little inches more in his favor. So, you can listen to 4 hours on this with Mark Drury if you want, or we've talked about it many times, but if there's anything I like the most, it's temperature drops. I'm a huge believer in the power of cold fronts. Barometric pressure, that seems to be one that's consistent with a lot of people. The moon thing, I don't know. And then, intelligence, trail camera pictures, actual observations, those things, when you see that, move on it because deer behavior can change fast. So jump on those opportunities. So
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How are you going to apply that topic to this hunt?
Well,
we're an out-of-state hunt.
Yep.
We've got 7, 8, 9 days, something like that, to get it done. We kind of dove in tonight in some good spots. We've got some not so great weather coming up, like pushing 90 degrees.
Yep.
How are you going to put that into motion here on our hunt in Idaho?
Yeah. So that's an interesting one because I would actually in a situation where you've got a very limited amount of time, I would kind of push some of that out of the way, and I wouldn't worry as much because the right time to strike is the few days you have. So you just got to take advantage of the few days you have. So in that case, even if the temperature gets hot, we still got to hunt. We still got to try to make the best of our couple days. Even if the barometric pressure of the moon's wrong, we still got to go and hit our good spots because this could be our only chance. But there are certain things like an observation. So, for example, if I observe a deer do something, I'm going to know not necessarily that tomorrow's the day to strike. Of course, tomorrow's the day to do it, but you'll know where. So you see a deer do something, immediately adjust, go in there, try to get him doing it again the next day, that kind of thing. If you're on a long trip and you've got something really dramatic where there's, it's been super 90 degrees warm forever, and then we know on the second day of the trip that you're going to have a 30-degree cold front come through and it's going to be amazing, then I might think, okay, that first night, well, let's just scout. Let's just watch that first night because it's going to be so good the next day. Let's just observe on night number one, see exactly what they're doing, and then we can make a kill and strike the next day, a very educated move. That kind of thing, maybe.
Sure.
But, in our situation, I think we just got to keep on going.
Yep, for sure.
So that's my take on that. And again, there's so many different ways this can be applied throughout the hunting season. So it could be outside factors like temperature, moon, blah, blah, blah. It could also be time of year. So, right, if you're a new hunter, it's important to remember there are certain times of year when you're going to have a disproportionately high chance of deer being on their feet and moving. So, for example, if I had to pick like my strike zones, the times of year that I'm, all things being equal, I'm going to feel the very best about my chances. I'm going to be looking at the first few days of the hunting season before a bunch of hunters have mucked things up. You've got a really good chance. Swing for the fences that time of year. And then you're going to get into late October or November when you're getting to the rut phases. That's a great time to swing for the fences. You get into the late season. If you get certain weather mixed with the late season, like really cold and snowy temperatures in December or January, then I'm going to swing for the fences, those kind of situations. So there's a bunch of different little ways that can be applied, but think about that high level concept throughout your year. Pick your times, pick your spots. You can't. You almost play pro baseball, right, Josh?
Yeah.
You can't try for a home run on every single pitch, right? You got to know the right pitches to. You tell me. You throw what's a baseball stick is what you swing?
Yeah, I think the stick. Yeah. No, I mean you get yourself into certain pitch counts that you're more likely to get a fastball or an easier pitch to hit that you can kind of, quote unquote, swing for the fences a little more freely on those types of counts than, other scenarios. And same thing with hunting.
Yeah.
You're going to have days where, hey, this thing's a pitch right down the middle. You're going to that classic rut spot because it's November 8th. But you don't want to go sit that same spot October 1st or September 1st or whatever it is.
Yep. And that takes some time to figure out, if you're brand new, don't feel bad if you don't know some of these things yet, but try to pick up or listen when you hear other conversations, when people are talking about these different times of year, these different circumstances that influence them to do certain things. Know that very little of that's by accident. Most any serious and consistently successful deer hunter does not do things willy-nilly. They don't do things by accident. The people that are consistently successful do it because they have a very clear plan and they do things for a reason. Nothing's by accident. Which brings us to another high-level concept which has helped me learn a lot as I go through my deer hunting journey, and that is this idea of always asking why. So when something happens, and I've shared this anecdote many times in the past, I'll share it again. But I was hunting with the late Craig Doherty, and we were sitting in one of his blinds in New York, and he was a very experienced, great deer hunter, and I was just a kid, I don't know, 21 or 22, and we were sitting there and we were hunting what looked like a great place to me, but we weren't seeing any deer. And as the night wrapped up, I said, well, I guess, just got unlucky. Just how it goes sometimes. And Craig's like, no, something was going on tonight. There's always a reason why. Always ask why? And then he started like putting out potential things. Maybe it was this. Maybe when we accessed this blind, we didn't think about the fact that the wind was blowing into that whole cut over timber area, and that might have been where they were all bedded tonight. So what I try to do, and what I'm actually going to try to start doing this hunting season, is every day after I hunt, come back and ask why. Like, examine what happened tonight. What did I see? What did I not see? Why did these things happen? And if you can do that in many different ways, you can do that like I just described after a hunt, or you could do that when you see a buck go skirting the edge of a field, or you watch a mature buck go do something. Always try to think about why that buck's doing that. Because, again, mature bucks, just like consistent deer hunters, they don't do things by accident typically. They're doing something for a reason. And if you can get better and better and better at discerning that reason, you become a much better hunter. So always ask why, because that is the key, I think, to learning and growing.
Yeah, that's definitely something I need to get better at. Asking myself why. I think that's a great idea. Keep track of, your observations, what you're seeing, and then why. Why is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, and so part of it is a thought exercise for you, right? Is like you, the individual, you're asking yourself why, and then you're making guesses, right? You're trying to think through, okay, these are the things I know, these are the things I think I know, it might be this, it might be this, it might be this. And simply going through that exercise is going to be good for you. But also, don't be afraid to ask other people that are experienced. Get other perspectives too, because that's really going to help you.
Well, and you may be able to start connecting dots too.
Exactly.
If you're looking at, okay, November 1st I saw him, November 8th I saw him, what were there any similarities from those days, and maybe that's the reason why he was doing that.
Yeah.
I think that definitely helps, and something I want to start doing more of.
Yeah, and this is where just having a good network of hunting buddies of some kind, whether that be folks you grew up with or someone you're involved in a conservation organization. If you don't have a group of hunting buddies, get involved with something like QDMA or BHA. That's a great way to get some friends that can help you out with these things. And one of the favorite things during the hunting season that I enjoy is this, reaching out to your buddies after something happens and say, hey, this happened. What do you think? Why? Why do you think this happened? And getting all these different ideas. That's fun, and it's also really helpful. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to ask why. You don't need to know it all. You don't need to feel bad if you don't have an answer. Admitting you don't have the answer is probably the first step, and then trying to figure something out or
a lot of times you probably won't have an answer.
Mm-hmm. But the process can help you get there someday.
Yep.
As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
Moving on to something a little more tactical, and this is just a key consistent trait, again, of all the people that are really, really good at this thing that we talk about in the Wiretime podcast all the time, deer hunting. Scouting more. They scout more than they hunt. Scout. Learn. Look for details. Pay attention to tracks. Pay attention to fresh sign. Pay attention to old sign. Go back and study these different things. See how sign changes year after year. See how sign changes in regards to crop rotation. See how, see if you can pin specific kinds of sign to specific deer you're after. Study trail camera pictures. Study observations from the past. Take note of these things you're seeing. Don't just walk around the woods and look at stuff, but go back and write in your journal or write on your phone in the notes that you saw this here and here and here, or go on your maps on Onyx or wherever and mark all these things up so you can start to put the picture together. It's such a simple thing, but it's easy to want to just go out there and hunt because that's, what a lot of us think of as hunting. But I can't think of anyone who's really good at this who doesn't point to the fact that they enjoy scouting a lot, but do it more than the average person for sure.
Yep.
So just don't discount that. It can be in season, it can be off season, it could be boots on the ground, it could be studying maps or studying trail camera pictures. But it goes back to a lot of what we're talking about here. We have this whole puzzle that we're trying to figure out when we're trying to hunt deer. You're trying to learn what deer do, why they do it, and then you're trying to predict what they're going to do next. Because that's the only way you can kill a deer is by predicting what these deer are going to do. The only way we can do that is by actually getting puzzle pieces to build out the damn picture on the table. And the only way you get those puzzle pieces in place is by scouting. There's lots of different ways to do that, but you need those puzzle pieces. It's very hard to recreate the picture on the box if you've only got 4 puzzle pieces of 1,000. Right. So get out there, find them, do the extra work to do that. An educated, well planned out hunt, just one like that, where scouting has led you to have a well-informed, educated guess behind everything you're doing. One of those is worth 10 willy-nilly uninformed hunts, or 50. Yep. It's again something that over the last however many years we've been doing this, 8-9 years, talking to the best deer hunters across the country, that is very, very, very consistent. Next, let's talk mindset again. Positive mindset, but negative preparations. So here's what I'm talking about here. And this goes back to what you talked about a little earlier. I do think that there's something to be said about having a positive mindset, believing in yourself, having confidence in the fact that I'm going to make this thing work, and also being positive about the fact that, yes, bad things are going to happen, and I'm not going to let that weigh me down and ruin my hunt and ruin my day and ruin my year. So what you can do is often, at least the way I look at it, maybe it's different for different people, but it comes down to a decision. You can choose to be a negative Nancy, or you can choose to say, you know what, I'm going to find some way to find silver linings. And a lot of these things are connected. I'm going to control what I can, and I'm going to let go of what I can't. And what you can do when you have that is that you become much more I don't know if it's accepting, but we've got a friend who believes that if you've got a positive mindset, it creates like an energy field that draws things to you. I'm not there yet. I don't know if I can't get behind that, but I do think that if you have a positive, confident, optimistic belief in yourself and view of the world, that you become much more able to take advantage of good things when they come about.
Sure. Yep.
Those opportunities, someone might call it lucky, but I think, what do they say? Luck is where preparation meets opportunity. It's you've put in the work, you've got the right mindset to take advantage of these things when they come along. If you are sitting there sulking about all your bad luck, all the things that went wrong, how tough your rut hunt's been, you haven't seen any deer, it's been so cold.
I'm gonna sit this one out.
Yeah, exactly.
And
all those things lead to self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yep.
So that is the positive mindset side of things. But I was recently listening to someone talk about the positive benefits of negative thinking, which was kind of counterintuitive to me, but it makes sense. And her whole idea here was that the whole positive mindset thing is important, but it is also beneficial to think through and have a plan for negative possibilities. So believe in yourself, believe and be positive about how you're going to spin these things as a positive, but also know that, hey, there likely will be potential challenges. So why don't I spend a little bit of time thinking about what could these challenges be, and how can I plan ahead of time to do something about it? So heading into your hunting season, get your mind right, plan on being positive, but then think about, okay, hey, there's some things that probably will go wrong, and maybe I can do a little thinking ahead of time to be ready to deal with some of that stuff. So for example, we're on our public land hunt right now. I want to be positive and optimistic about how things are going to go, but likely some things will go wrong. Here's something that could go wrong. I bet you there's going to be other hunters out there that are going to muck things up. So before this hunt, I thought to myself, okay, probably is going to happen. There's going to be other people. So right off the bat, I need to really try hard not to get all pissy and moany and upset about that. When it happens, be like, okay, this is what it is. That's okay. How do we adjust? Okay, so there's one thing I'm thinking about. I'm gonna be much better at that. And it happened tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can be pissy and moany, or we can say, okay, that happened. It is what it is. How do you adjust?
Yep.
What else could we do? We're worried about other hunters. Well, have backup plans. So this year I made sure we had 3 very different, diverse, different types of areas where you're not dead set stuck on any one place. We have options. So if we came in here and there's a lot of other hunters, we plan to have other options. So that's just one example of how you can do this. The same thing could be said for your upcoming hunting season. Like, here's another example. I am so focused on trying to kill Tran, right? That's my number 1 target buck in Michigan, my 3rd year hunting him. I spend a lot of mental bandwidth thinking about how I'm going to find this deer, and, I'm all wrapped up in this mission or whatever you want to call it. But I also need to be realistic about the possible negative possibilities. I'm not wishing this. I'm not giving into this fate. I am just being realistic about the possibility. Hey, a neighbor could kill him. Someone else could kill him. He could get hit by a truck. And all these plans, all this work I've done specifically to try to kill this one deer, I could all go out the window. So I'm going to, and I already have, I've had like a little mental conversation with myself saying, hey, this is a possibility. How are you going to handle that? What are you going to do when that happens? You going to sulk and moan and give up on the season? Or are you going to, regroup and go find something else, somewhere else, and find another fun thing to do for this season? So I've kind of already tried to mentally prepare myself for that so that when it happens, if it happens, I'm not going to be devastated and kicking and screaming on the floor. I'm going to, take the punch and move on.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do.
To have that positive mindset, but prepare for negative possibilities. I think that's something that in so many parts of the deer hunting experience can help you. What else do you want to talk about, Josh? How about, here's a high level one that, again, this isn't rocket science. This is nothing new to anyone, but it's something that I think you just have to get knocked on the head with over and over and over and over with, which is don't get lazy with your access and your exit. Don't cut your corners when it comes to getting into your tree stands or out of your tree stands without spooking deer. Because if you're educating your deer, this goes right back to the very first thing we talked about. The first sit is the best. You don't get a first sit if you let them know you're coming in on the way you're there. And you don't get to enjoy future first sits if every deer in your property knows that you're leaving at the end of the night and walking through a cut cornfield and you're spooking 50 deer every single night. You got to have a plan in place for how to deal with access and exit. So today when we hiked in, we had to deal with slightly less than optimal winds. We had a plan for how we were going to access this as best as possible, thinking about wind, thinking about scent control. And then when we had to exit tonight, you and me were talking through, okay, how do we get out of here without spooking these deer that got to these fields? You wait a while. I'm going to sneak out this back way a little bit. You just don't want to bust these deer. And again, I'm not claiming this to be rocket science. This is just a, hey, this is your once this week reminder. You got to take it serious.
Yep. Well, especially like just to go into a little bit about tonight. I mean, first sit, really good sit. Made some great observations that we can use to our advantage tomorrow, which could potentially be another quote unquote first sit in a little different spot, mix it up a little bit, move and adjust our setups to what the deer are doing, similar wind direction. So I had deer all over me. So I just had to wait to get out of there. Try to get out of there as quiet as we can so we don't muck it all up for tomorrow.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is that we had this great first sit. We had this great observation. We had this great new intelligence, this new scouting intel that we can use to hopefully put a kill, make it happen tomorrow. But if we got lazy with our exit, we could throw all that out the door because we might educate all those deer, and then tomorrow they're going to do something totally different.
Yep.
So it's one of those things that can just have this really disproportionate effect. It can really change things. It can take all your hard work and just stomp on it like grapes. So don't let that be the crux that ruins what you're doing. And it's again, it goes back to planning these things out ahead of time. Think through, okay, what's the challenge of getting in or out of here, and how do I account for that? Is this a spot I just can't hunt in the evenings? Is this a spot I just can't go to in the mornings? Is this a spot that I have to convince my wife to come drive out here and pick me up? whatever you got to do, think about those things and understand that it's something that has to be part of every decision when it comes to picking where you're hunting and when you're hunting. That has to be at the very forefront of that decision-making process. How many is that, Josh?
I don't know. I was about to ask you how many we've gone through.
You know what I did here is I wrote down more than 10. I got on a roll and I just started writing things down. So I don't even know. Let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 more. 2 more. Okay. This is one more tactical thing. And it's a little bit of it's nothing too special or tricky, but it's something that's helped me out in a lot of situations. And this is the idea of it's easy to get tunnel vision with the places that you hunt. You can get so focused on the spots you hunt and the property that you hunt that you, what's the saying? You miss the forest for the trees. You don't zoom out and look at the bigger picture. So my reminder to everybody is to remember to look at the big picture. Don't get too obsessed with these 2 trails and how deer are getting between that little ravine and that swallow or that swale. That's important, but also what you can do is zoom out, literally zoom out on the maps and look at how your little property fits into the bigger scheme of things. Or look at your property with new eyes and try to say, okay, if I had never hunted this place and I was looking at this as a brand new property from above, what would I think? Where are the places that look particularly appealing? Because if you've got 20 years of history in a place, it's very easy to get sucked into the same old stuff. And this is what Grandpa did, or this is what we did, and this is just what you do, or this is what has always worked for me. But getting those fresh eyes on a property and looking at it from a high level and trying to start at the simplest and then work down, it's a really powerful way to come to new ideas. So that's something like before the hunting season opens or soon after, I'd encourage everyone to try to do this, to try to look at your spots, whether it's a public land area or your land that you own or lease or have permission on. Try to as best as you can. This is, again, it's like a mental exercise. You can't completely do this, but try to say, okay, if I didn't know anything about this, if I was looking at this as a brand new place, what would the spots be that I key in on? Or how do I think deer would move through here? Or how does this property fit into the square mile? Or how do deer get from that corner of the square mile to this corner of the square mile? You might start to see trends or ideas or patterns that could help you in your little tunnel vision world, but you never would notice if you only lived in that tunnel vision world.
Yep.
So look at the big picture. And that's number 9. Number 10, I think I've got 3 good ones to choose from, Josh. I'm just going to say them all. I'm going to call it as 10. Execute on the plan. You know what to do. If you listen to this podcast, if you love this kind of stuff, you know most of the things you're supposed to do. I say this a lot, but this is one of the hardest things we have as hunters. And it goes back to the whole little things matter, the whole every inch counts. It's doing the shit that you know has to get done, but it's hard to do.
Right.
It's hard to do all the little stuff. It's hard to get up early. It's hard to make sure you packed everything and double checked. It's hard to wake up 8 days in a row. It's hard to walk that extra half mile to make sure you're not blowing deer out of the field. All those things are hard. What's easy is to skip things. What's easy is to say, it'll be fine today. What's easy is to say, it's raining outside, I'm going to watch college football, unless you like the Big Ten. But if you can make this promise to yourself, and every year I try to do it, and I'm never perfect at this, and maybe some people are. I'm not perfect. I can't nail this all the time, but every year I try to have kind of a mental little pep talk, at the beginning of the season, and then usually at the beginning of the rut, like, hey, you got to do better than you did last year at least. Execute on this thing. You know the things to do. You have a plan. You've done the work. Now you just have to follow through on it.
And maybe you don't try to, bite it all off at one time.
Yeah.
Pick the 1 or 2 things that you really struggle with the most, that consistently every year that you struggle with. Pick those and try to fix those this year, and then maybe pick something else next year, and you'll get that ball rolling downhill and you'll be good to go. Yeah,
and that applies to all of these ideas, right? A lot of different high level little reminders here, and I don't think any of us could probably try to focus on all of these, but if each one of us could pick one of these things to really focus on this year and make a real tangible difference there, you're all of a sudden having a better deer hunting season. Which brings me to the last thing, which is something that Andre DeQuisto talked about a couple weeks ago on the podcast, and it really stuck with me, was this idea of trying to overcome our fear of failure. And it's something that I realized as he was talking about this, that I've had a lot over the last decade. As I've learned more and more about, hunting mature bucks. I don't know, what was it, 12, 13 years ago now? How old am I, 33? When I was about 20. Yeah, so about 13 years ago, I decided, hey, I'm going to try to start shooting big old bucks. And the first things I read, and many of the people that I was learning from early on, it was all about how to not screw up. And some of the things we've talked about today are related to how to not screw up, how to keep deer from getting educated. That's very important. But at the same time, back to the baseball analogy, if you constantly are bunting because it's like a safe thing to do, you're never going to hit a home run. Sometimes you do have to take that swing. Sometimes you do have to get aggressive. And that comes with experience. It comes with time. It comes with knowing the right times to strike. But I'm working on this year to try to not be so afraid to fail and instead be a little bit more, I'm not sure what the right word is, but prepared to succeed or reaching for the success. Sometimes you got to go get it. You can't always wait for it to come to you. It's like there's two approaches. There's the wait around and just don't screw up enough until the deer makes a mistake approach, or there's a go for it until you get the success. And you make a bunch of mistakes along the way. You screw up a bunch of stuff along the way, but if you swing for the fences enough times, you will get that home run. And you only need one home run a year to be a pretty happy hunter. There's a lot of circumstantial stuff that can change how you actually execute on this. You don't want to go hunt bedding areas every single time if you have a 20-acre property. That's the only thing you can hunt. But I do think there are opportunities, at least speaking for myself, where I can get more aggressive in a smart way, in a well-planned way. Yep. That in the past I was probably, worried that, that's too risky, or that's, too aggressive for this time of year, for this kind of property, for this state. But maybe that's a lot of just what other people are telling me. Why not go learn those things for yourself and see if you can pull it off? And if you can't pull it off, what do you learn from it? Ask why after the situation. Learn from it. Control what you can control. Let go of the things you can't. Execute the damn plan. Be positive, but prepare for the negative possibilities. And
these things just all
rolls
just wrap
together.
it all right up in a nice little bow there, Mark. That was nice.
Yeah, if you can do those things, you are set for quite possibly your best deer hunting season ever. Maybe that's literally, maybe that's just emotionally or fun or whatever. But I do think, and I hope some of these ideas can help you out, whether this is your first hunting season or your 45th. I think there's some things in here that each and every one of us could think about a little bit more. So those are my reminders leading into the hunting season. I'm excited for all of you. I'm excited for myself. I'm excited for you, Josh. And let's just give the people the story of what happened tonight, because we got to Idaho. We drove 25 hours straight from Michigan all the way through the night. We got to my place out here. We did some scouting on a property, lots of other hunter sign, bunch of trail cameras, tree stand. So that was a little disheartening, but we prepared for this. Yep. I had scouted several other places this summer. So I had one place in particular that I was very excited about. I think I talked about this with Dan on one episode, but just for those that aren't familiar, I'll get you up to speed just a little bit. I basically had been roaming Idaho looking for places where public land intersected with river bottom cover, which is usually where you find good whitetail populations out west. And then I was trying to then verify that after finding these places on maps. Then I go and verify in person, like, can you get access in here? Does it actually look like there's food around it that the deer would be feeding on? Can you hunt it with certain wind directions? Are there actually deer in here? So I went and visited a bunch of places, drove all over the place, hiked in some of these spots, and eventually found one of them that I really liked. I snuck in there in the last couple hours of daylight, started seeing deer crossing a little opening. I hunkered down, watched this area for a while. Then I snuck up to a field edge right at the edge of the public and watched several nice bucks and a bunch of deer go out in this alfalfa field. So right there, I ascertained, number one, there's quality deer on this piece of public land. Number two, I figured out, hey, these deer are going to this field. Here's where they're bedding. Here's where they're feeding, in a general idea. And then I went and I left with a little bit of daylight left and drove the outside roads to see other food sources, to see, are there more deer coming into other fields? What's the kind of big picture of what we have here as a possibility? That all led to us today. We checked spot number one, determined there's some other people in there. So the idea was, let's go into spot number two. I can tell you right out the gate that there's going to be deer probably feeding in this alfalfa field. And I'm pretty sure they're bedding on these, river bottom stuff over to the north. And you and I snuck in with a game plan to try a first night hunt with what goals to observe and learn and, still be in position that maybe we could get lucky in night number one.
Yeah, I think we definitely we both put ourselves in positions that I think we could potentially have shot opportunities, but then also be able to kind of see what's going on with this piece of public land and what's going on with it and what the deer, how they're using it. And I had a night like I don't think I've ever had in the woods before, just with nonstop action. It started off slow. I mean, we got in there pretty early just to make sure we had some time to check it out and knew what we were doing and knew where we were going. And but we had what was that? Maybe 2 hours before dark. Mm-hmm. First buck popped out in the alfalfa field. We were, it's going kind of slow, and then all of a sudden, first deer came out. And then from there on out, it was just whirlwind of trying to keep track of the deer that I saw and trying to keep track of where they were coming out, how they were using the bedding area and coming out into the food source. And,
and so to back up real quick, Josh, just want to explain how the two of us set up differently.
Sure.
We had you set up kind of on the edge of this field so that you could shoot in the public land cover on our side, but you could at least glass the alfalfa field on the private land. The idea being that we really wanted to know, A, are there deer still coming out to feed out here? And B, if so, where are they leaving the public land from?
Yep.
If we could figure that out, then we would know on night number two where to go set up.
Yep.
So that's where you went. I went back in the cover closer to the bedding areas to try to see, okay, is this where they are? I didn't know. We weren't able to be out here for the first couple nights of the season. So we're in here night number 3 of the season. So I was a little worried, did a bunch of guys pound this the first couple nights and all that bed to feed stuff isn't going to be happening as visibly out closer to the field. We might have to be tight to the bedding area. So I thought, if you're on the observation stand near the food source, you can see what's happening out there. I could be a little tighter to the cover, a little bit farther in, and we'll kind of see which situation we're dealing with. And pretty quickly it became apparent that your situation was pretty good because I saw some deer, but nothing like you saw. I saw 2 does, a fawn, a little 6-pointer, a spike, and like a nice little 2-year-old 8-pointer. And that was all about in the last hour of daylight for me. But that's what I saw. So like 7 deer. You saw
70, 80 deer, something like that. I couldn't keep track.
You've never had a night like that?
I've never had a night
right?
like that, no.
Best night ever? Probably?
Yeah, I mean, every time I turned around, there was more deer, and I could tell they were different ones because they kept feeding out into the middle of this alfalfa fields. I mean, by the time, daylight was gone, there was 80 deer in that field. I mean, it was crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
How many bucks?
25 or 30.
Whoa.
I saw one bachelor group of 10 bucks come out. Another 7 bucks just before last light, and I think I was keeping track on my phone. I think I saw 8 bucks before those 2 groups.
You can never say that I garhole you.
Yeah, you're right.
I didn't put you in a bed. Not that you picked your own spot, but I certainly didn't. Force you in a bad spot.
It was incredible. I mean, just there's deer coming out everywhere, and trying to keep track of where they were coming out, and eventually just get, okay, I think maybe out of those 25 or $30, maybe 3 or 4 of them were like mature bucks that like good shooter bucks.
And I want to take a step back to just say this is absurd.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
This is not normal for most people or for us. I don't like. Yeah, this is nuts. We've kind of stumbled on them. My scouting worked out. Got a little lucky too. Found a little honey hole here that's hard to get to. You got to walk a long ways from the road. It's relatively tough to access public land in an area that not a whole lot of people are interested in whitetails. And you got good food and good cover, and all these things kind of line up to have this kind of underutilized resource where there's a whole bunch of deer and a bunch of nice bucks. And knock on wood, we're in the middle.
And they seem like healthy. I mean, I saw a bunch of fawns, a bunch of does with twin fawns, and so that's exciting too from like a quality standpoint.
Yeah.
Like these animals are getting the food that they need, and they've got the security cover that they need. I mean, they've got everything right there, and they don't have to venture very far for any of it, I don't think.
So you were set up on the edge of the field.
Yep.
You had a buck. You had one shot opportunity.
I did. I passed.
Almost happened.
I passed a nice as a 9 point. I think he's probably a 2.5-year-old, and my personal goals are like a 3.5-year-old. And I was clipped in on my bow, and I was looking at. I may regret it later. I may regret it by the end of the week. If another opportunity doesn't arise, but I was this close to taking a shot tonight. Just I wasn't quite ready to be done though either on the first night after that kind of action. So
so everything else though was kind of out of range by a little bit at least.
Yeah, most things were out of range. Out of all those deer, I think I maybe had 5 or 6 within range, and then some of that was on the private that the alfalfa field was. They couldn't shoot into there.
Right.
But there were a few deer that would have been within range there. So I think maybe 5 to 6 deer were probably within range, and then everything else was, I don't know, some stuff was way out and some stuff was within 100 yards. So some micro adjustments, I think, to what I want to do tomorrow, and I should be in the game.
Yeah, so I didn't see anything I was interested in shooting where I was at. So I'm making a wholesale move to a new area. But you saw several bucks that you would like to shoot. So walk me through your game plan for tomorrow.
Yeah,
how are you going to adjust?
So we got a couple things to think about. One of the things we didn't talk about was we did have another hunter in there tonight. Don't know when he came in. I never saw him come in. You never saw or heard him come in.
Yep.
But he
just saw him come out.
Yeah, we just saw him riding a bike, like a mountain bike on the way out. I could see with my binoculars, he had a bow in his lap. And that was like 15 minutes before shooting light ended. So that was one of those things, oh, geez, I might as well start packing up now. And no later did he go driving out, did a bachelor group of 7 bucks come out right where he rode his bike through. 2 of those being good shooter, nice, really
That's
solid
crazy.
8 points within minutes after he left. So I don't know where exactly he was at, but I think my plan is to move up on a little bit towards the bedding area and further towards the east of where these deer were coming. They were coming out into the field about 70 yards from where I was set up. So if I can cut that distance down and then move a little further back into the cover, I'd like to try to intercept them a little bit sooner. I mean, they came out within the last couple minutes of shooting light. So if I can get back in there a little deeper without spooking anything, give myself a few extra minutes of daylight, hopefully to make something happen.
What's your confidence level?
I'm pretty high. I'm feeling pretty good about it.
If you had to place like a probability that you're going to get a shot tomorrow, percentage-wise.
I don't like doing this.
Yeah, I was going to put $10 on it. You'd have to pay me $10.
You're putting me in a bad situation. I don't like putting that because then I'm going to have this pressure on myself. I don't know. I mean, so many things can go wrong. I mean, right now they're calling for the same wind, and will they do the same thing? Maybe. Did they come out down there because they knew I was in there and they,
right?
It could be a number. The why.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I don't know why they did that. Or is that just the trail they have been using for the last couple months in their summer feeding patterns? I don't know. If they did exactly the same thing, and I set myself up in a good, tree where I could have some multiple shot like different lanes and things, I don't know, 80%. I don't know.
Confident man.
75%, 80%.
Positive mindset.
If there's 70 or 80 deer running around there, maybe there'll be some others that could get an arrow as well.
Yeah.
So
I'm really
definitely
excited.
a target-rich environment.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I didn't have nearly the night you had, but just hearing about your experience has me so excited. Just because that makes me feel great about my own possibilities, but then also it's just going to be fun to see you get an opportunity. And
now that we said this, I probably won't see a single deer tomorrow or something.
we don't believe in jinxes. We don't believe in any of that kind of stuff. We're going to see what happens, and if it doesn't go well, we will adjust and adapt, and we'll figure out.
Oh, I forgot. I did see a cow moose too at the very end of the night. So
That's
a cow
pretty
moose.
wild.
That was pretty cool.
Good night.
Cool critters, man. They're big animals.
All right, Josh. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No, just see if I can. I should be able to get some sleep tonight with going on like 36 straight hours of not much sleep. But I don't know. I'll be thinking about tomorrow afternoon.
Everybody, if nothing we said here tonight makes any sense, just know that's because we drove all the way through the night and then hunted and worked all day today, and it's like almost midnight when we're recording this, and I think neither one of us got more than 2 hours over the last 48 of sleep. 2 hours of sleep over the last 48 hours. So the fact that we've coherently spoken for 59 minutes and 56 seconds, I think is downright miraculous.
That's a win.
So
we just got a good attitude and we've got the right mindset, right?
Exactly. So, with that said, I think I'll let you guys get after it. For those of you that are starting your hunting seasons this week or have over the past couple of days, good luck. Get out there. I hope you can take some of these things into account and find them helpful. You know, one thing I didn't mention and should have mentioned, one of the very most important things on top of all these other reminders, on top of all these other ideas, ultimately have fun. Enjoy it out there. Don't get too worked up. Don't get too stressed. Don't make it work. Try to enjoy this thing. Put food on the table, spend time with your friends and family, and enjoy the great outdoors. This is an awesome thing we get to do. It's a privilege. It's just good stuff. So best of luck. Enjoy it. And until next time, stay wired to hunt.
As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.